Yes.
Okay. I'd like to bring to order the Thursday, June 10th meeting of the Tiverton Planning, not meeting, it's a workshop of the Tiverton Planning Board, Zoning Board, and Tiverton Economic Development, along with the Tiverton Town Councils. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America,
and
to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'm going to do a roll call of my council. Susan, you probably don't even have to because you don't have a quorum.
Right.
Here's Lee's.
Oh, Lisi. Hi, Lisi.
She's here.
Lisi, you're muted, but welcome.
Hi.
Hi, honey.
Hi.
All right. Joan, would you like to do a recall of the town council? I not a recall. Wow, I'd love you to do a recall of the town council. A roll call.
Good slip of the tongue.
That was a big slip of the tongue. Joan.
Councilor Perry,
Present.
Councilor Edwards,
Here.
Councilor Vieira,
Present.
Councilor Janik,
Present.
Councilor Burke,
Here.
Councilor DiMederos.
Yeah.
Who am I missing? 1, 2, 3.
Cook, Councilor Cook.
Oh, Councilor Cook is absent.
Absent. Okay, so Lisi, you are here. Like I just told Susan, I don't think you have to do a roll call or a beginning of your meeting because you do not have quorum.
Right. I think I'm the only one that's here.
Yeah,
on the
you are.
board. Yeah.
EDC does now.
Yeah, EDC just, okay, Renee, you have to start your meeting or your workshop.
So in attendance, we have Martin Van Hoff,
Here.
Barbara Pelletier. She's muted, but she's here. And Renee Jones, so we have a quorum. I don't see anybody else from our group.
Thank you, Renee. All right, the first item is review and discuss roles and expectations of each commissioner, board, committee, planning board, zoning board, and Tiverton Economic Development Commission. I'm going to let Councilor Burke take over from this point on. Mike, would you like to start?
Sure, thank you. Thank you everyone for coming tonight, and we put this together in part out of discussions with the Economic Development Commission, and we did a presentation to the council back, I believe it was April 24th. And then this was one of the decisions out of that, was to hold this joint meeting. And really the intent, and I know there's, maybe questions about not overlapping roles, stepping on roles, and that's not the intent of this. And certainly not the intent of this to hash out individual items before the planning board or the zoning board. It's really intended to help all of us meet the expectations that are built into the charter and built into the comprehensive plan. And again, the EDC has really been focusing a lot this spring on ensuring that they can meet their role. And part of meeting their role, one of the expectations in the comprehensive plan is actually to pull together some type of collaborative meeting with most of these boards. And probably zoning is a bit of an outlier, but one of the reasons we had suggested including it was also to look at the resources needed by each committee and commission, and the resources that aren't there, and how we can address that. Additionally, we had, and this all kind of blends together, we had a presentation by the Newport Chamber and Connect Greater Newport, which is a subsidiary of the Chamber. recently at the end of May. And we also just recently decided to re-engage with them, both entities, and through memberships. One of the benefits of Connect Greater Newport is to help us look at strategic economic planning. They have one of their major goals is that they have a company out of Pittsburgh that works closely with them, that actually manages them for that purpose. And we just, the EDC really wants to do their part in helping to encourage business. And part of that, I think, is us as a whole determining what we want. Now, certainly the comprehensive plan provides some broad direction, but it doesn't really articulate fully what that might look like and where it might look like. I'll give you, some examples. North Tiverton, the main road area. Lots of desire to do something there, but not sure what that should look like. The Bliss Four Corners area, the business park as well. And in fact, the comprehensive plan, there's one of the tasks in there that's primarily a task of the administrator, but with the support of the planner and the EDC, is to partner with the Commerce Chamber, Rhode Island Commerce Corporation, and the Newport Chamber to assist in marketing available space and to maximize the economic opportunities in the business park. So there are a couple pieces there, and Jennifer sent me today, and I appreciate everybody has this in their comprehensive plan book, but Jennifer, maybe afterwards you can send this to, or ask Joan to send it to everybody on here that was invited to this. And she did a nice job. Well, I assume you did this, Jennifer, a nice job of putting all of the action steps in the comprehensive plan into an Excel worksheet, so you can really manipulate it, look at it, and really take the opportunity. I think we as a council will be taking the opportunity to kind of look at where we're at with each of those, to make sure we're on track. And I'm sure the other committees are probably looking at their piece of it too. So that's kind of the broad brushstroke. I'm sure there were questions as to why we're here, and mainly it's to have a conversation and then look at how we can move forward with collaboration, meetings, whatever. And it might not, I'm not suggesting that we have this type of a meeting all the time. Myself, I'm actually thinking the chairs, vice chairs can meet with the planner, the administrator periodically to kind of talk about things, but it's also about communication processes. Because also the EDC is charged with helping to both entice businesses as well as connect to businesses when they're coming in, to kind of be that welcoming board for them. So I don't know if Susan, Renee, or Lise, as the chairs of your respective committees, you have anything you want to start with at this point?
I'd like to mention why, for me, this became something important. And sometimes it's just a question of a lot of things coming to your attention at the same time. And that's basically what happened to me and why this sort of became an issue for me. At one point I attended a meeting, a Zoom meeting with Stefan Pryor from Rhode Island Commerce. And Tiverton's name came up as a place, one of 7 towns in the state of Rhode Island that still had industrial property to be developed. I don't know what, I had sort of walked in on the meeting, I came in on the meeting, and that's all of a sudden my ears perked up that somehow we're on somebody's list. The other thing that sort of came to was when we had a new town council liaison. We were trying to get together with our, come up with our own goals. There's a new member of Connect Greater Newport. In fact, I just spent 2 hours talking to Isabel Marsh about how Connect Greater Newport and the Commerce Chamber of Commerce could be working with us. I have gotten wind of several bond issue from Rhode Island Commerce that is sounding like, and I did send this information to both Chris Cotta and just Jennifer Siciliano about an issue that sounds like it might be something that would be helpful in developing our business park. So all these things started coming together, and I just felt like some of these, these kinds of decisions are not decisions that I felt comfortable making in a vacuum. I needed to have a sense of where the town felt it needed to go, what it was looking at, and just like I said, like Mike said, a general conversation. One of the questions he asked us, the EDC, was, what's our brand? Who are we? Who is Tiverton? Because that will help us decide what are the kinds of businesses we want to come in. We know what the people have said in the comprehensive plan. They like their small town. They like their quality of life. What does that translate into when we're starting to look for businesses? Where do we want these businesses? Today, when I was talking to Isabel, I was saying, it's not just an industrial park. We have a number of business properties. The latest one is the Knights of Columbus that is now up for sale. That would be, and it could very well be, an innovation center if somebody was able to look at that, similar to what they have in Newport, Innovate Newport, where people come in and businesses use space because they can start up there. There's areas on Main Road by the fish market. What is that building going to be that's been up on stilts for the past 3 years? What's happening to the building that's behind the vet's office? That's also an office space. So there are a lot of questions that, as I talk to people and hear about what resources are, I feel like the EDC needs to have some input from different town agencies in terms of what they think would be appropriate for the town. And I think the town members need to communicate with each other and sort of hash some of these things out. The issue with the industrial bond is coming up quickly. I plan to be in touch with Rhode Island Commerce this week to get some additional help from John Riondo to see, what the next step would be for Tiverton. But I have some ideas. Ideas like, should we be approaching Rhode Island Commerce to help us with the infrastructure for the business park? Maybe that's what makes the most sense. Having somebody come down and review where our lots are, where it makes sense to put the water and the electricity. There are a lot of questions. So that's basically why I felt it would be helpful to get some input and to just open a conversation. It's not, anything hard and fast. It's just to open up conversation with you.
Renee, have you talked to the planner concerning all of this?
I have kept her in whatever I know I have sent. The meeting was just today with Isabel Marsh, so I figured I could wait until today. The information from John Riondo, I sent both to Chris Cotta and to the planner and to Jennifer. And anything that I get that I think is of interest, I try to send to them immediately so that, it's not just coming to me. I do try to send it out as soon as I get it. Yeah.
Thank you.
I have a question. Hello?
Barbara, can I just hang on 1 second? I wanted to give Susan and Lisi an opportunity as the chairs to.
Well, I don't know if I have any introductory remarks, but I would like to address everybody when it comes to like roles and expectations. I think that would be helpful for everybody to have a clear understanding. So I can do that now, or I can do it till you get to that agenda item.
I'd say go ahead.
Go ahead.
Susan. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So what I wanted to kind of go through briefly was just explain what the role of the planning board is, because I think that seems to be the most abstract concept for people that have never spent time, I guess, attending meetings or being involved in it. And basically, the planning board, we review plans. Some of the things that Renee is talking about, we don't go out and we're not in a position to go out and solicit businesses to come to town. That's not our primary function. Jennifer, as a planner, has that capability, but that's not something that we are, that's not one of our directives. So what we do is we review all residential developments except for single-family homes or lot construction, unless they would fall in the watershed. Then we would have some oversight over that. We review all commercial development in town. And what we do is we review anything more than a single lot or single family. So anything that's 2 lots or more, that's what falls as a subdivision. That's what falls under our purview. So when those things come to us, because we're land development, we don't necessarily look at them as to what they are, but it's in relation to the land. During the course of our reviews, then we look at in relation to zoning and figure out if how it fits in with the designated zoning. That's basically what our primary function is. We also work on writing or developing zoning ordinances. The council can refer them to us, or we can generate our ordinances then to go to the council. Even when we draft them, we approve them, but they're advisory, and the council is the entity that has the ability to, or that has the direction to approve zoning ordinances. And another one of our functions is to implement the comp plan functions that are delegated to us, and to try and coordinate. I mean, the planning board does a lot of the coordinating efforts. Basically, we interact with town staff, we work with developers, individual homeowners, architects, engineers, attorneys, state and local agencies like DOT, DEM, CRMC, which is Coastal Resources Management. And we work with a lot of them during the course of reviewing applications and the process. So there's always a lot involved in it, and usually what appears on the surface, there's a lot more that goes on behind the screen, and what goes into it to prepare for meetings and to approve plans. And basically we look at everything coming from the point of what is in the best interest of the town. When we go through approved plans, we are basically instructed to take our personal opinions out of it. We apply the subdivision regulations, the zoning ordinances, and the comprehensive community plan. And that's how we approve plans, take our votes. We don't say, well, we like it because of this and that, but we have to have findings of fact as well. So that's the role of what the planning board is. I don't know if that helps, clarify things, like the things that Renee wants to do with industrial park. I mean, we wouldn't as a planning board go out and look for entities. It's once they propose something, then we have the job to review them and make sure they fit into what the town has designed as far as ordinances and subdivision regulations. I hope you find that a little bit helpful, but that's what our role is in the town.
Thanks, Susan.
Yeah, sure.
Lisa, do you want to note anything?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. I was actually very reluctant to attend this meeting because we function as a quasi-judicial board, and we're not the aesthetic police, and we're there to interpret. Many times we review planning board decisions or recommendations, and we have we take testimony, we can ask questions of witnesses of all kinds, and we have to interpret the zoning ordinances and state law as they're written. I remember when I was interviewing for my last appointment for the zoning board, I was asked the question, "What's your personal philosophy about zoning?" And I was really shocked by the question, because I have, as an impartial finder of fact and applier of the law, I can have no personal opinion about zoning. So I was reluctant to participate in this conversation because I'm afraid I might say something that could be misconstrued by a future litigant, to say that I'm anti development or anti-business or whatever, but because we really are dealing with just the law and the facts as we find them to be, and apply the legal standards that we're required to apply when we're sitting as the Board of Appeals for the Planning Board, and or reviewing an act of the building official, and that's pretty much it. If you asked about what our expectations were, I was a criminal defense lawyer for 44 years, and I worked basically in the public defender's office and then in private practice, where my clients very often didn't have the resources. And I wish that there were times that we could hire experts. And I know we have a budget that we share with the planning board, but we have, our litigants come before us with expert witnesses that we know they're paying, and we know that they're being paid to testify to a certain opinion, an expert opinion, and very often it's in an area where I don't have any personal expertise. Septic systems. I mean, what do I know about septic systems? I know that my own doesn't work very well. That's about it. So, I wish that we had a consultant. I wish somebody could sit down with me and help me read a plan, because very often they're very technical and I don't know what I'm looking at. Plus the print is so small, I can't see it. So I wish I had some backup services, in terms of preparing for the hearings, and being able to answer or to ask the questions that'll be probative to show someone's either improper opinion or invalid opinion, or the like. So I don't know if that's what you wanted me to, the scope of what you wanted to hear from me, but that's sort of what I have to say.
I find that extremely helpful. I'm sorry, Denise.
Absolutely.
Lisa, you do have our town attorney with you.
Yes.
And
But he's not a septic system expert either.
No, but you always have the resources of the planner that
Yes.
could help you get the septic system resources. So maybe, do you ever reach out to Jennifer to help look at plans? Because she's very good at it.
Well, I just met her.
Okay.
All
right, well, Jennifer, this is Lisa.
we recently met, and certainly Susan and I have conferred about mutual questions that we have from our respective boards. But they're technical. A lot of the areas that we deal with are engineering issues. They're and I'm not an engineer. I like to think that I can ask intelligent questions on, but sometimes I feel like I'm lacking.
Does our DPW director give any insight? He is an engineer and he could get you some help.
Well, we've never had any input from him, and maybe I'm supposed to go ask him. I don't know.
Well, no, but maybe we could connect you, and maybe he could participate in your meetings when you need some kind of advice concerning engineer. And there's one thing about Rick: if he doesn't know the answer, he will find someone who will give you the answer.
Well, I'm glad you suggested that, because I don't even know who to call. I don't even know who the DPW guy is, or the.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Well, then I'm gonna have him Chris is on, and maybe we can have the DPW director reach out to the zoning board and see if there's any technical advice he could help them with, or try to get some resources for them.
We went to some of those outside trainings.
Yep.
And I found those were really helpful. I mean, it was one of those experiences where you were horrified to find out how much you didn't know.
Mm-hmm. I do that every day.
Yeah, I know. It's very humbling. But I really did learn a lot about, the coastal resources and those issues about, waterfront property. And obviously that impacts Tiverton because,
Well, in the future, if you find anything that you'd like to participate in, talk to Chris, and maybe the town council could get some resources for you to attend that, you and your committee, because we do have a contingency fund and we spend it for things like this if we need to. And if the zoning board needs future education, I think the council would be willing to help with that.
Okay, that's great.
And Lisa, I think that speaks to one of the things we discussed at our April meeting too, is, I think it was the April meeting, is trying to set up a system or a structure for the administrator to meet with the various chairs on a regular basis as a group. Again, not to delve into the particulars of the various committees, but to look at, some of the issues like you described. And maybe there's somebody on, like Denise said, Rick might be able to help you with something, or maybe doing some getting folks to additional trainings. I think the big thing, again, that came out of the conversation with EDC was feeling that, and Renee, I think, expressed this to me several times, is not knowing where to go and feeling that there wasn't a lot of guidance. So I think that's helpful. Thank you.
Well, I do want to stress that Chris Carter is new at this.
Mhm.
And he came into this.
Yeah, I'm not
year.
picking. I'm not picking on Chris.
No. And I'm certainly not picking on Chris. But if you need help, I know his doors are always open. As you know, since he joined us, there's been 100 other things that have happened. But I know that if you reach out to Chris, he will help you. I do know that. He really hasn't had time to really dive into this job yet, because we were in the middle of a COVID crisis and now we're in the middle of the budget. And maybe at some point he can reach out to all of you, but don't hesitate. And I'm talking for Chris. And if Chris, you want to say anything, but don't hesitate to contact him if you need any special services or if you need help with something. I'm sure Chris will help you. It's just that he puts out fires every day and you just have to get his attention.
I
Right,
think
Chris?
one of the other things I wanted to mention is that I think that our zoning ordinances need a good look over.
Absolutely.
For revisions. And, we have to, try to construe what the intent is with these standards. And quite frankly, it's like throwing Jello against the wall. So we really do need to tighten up some of the language and provide definitions where there aren't any definitions, even if the definition might be something that is a common sense application of a word. It becomes, a lot of these land disputes, because everything becomes very technical,
Mhm.
Couldn't agree more.
I'm sorry?
I said I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
We have talked about rewriting zoning ordinances since I've gotten on the council. It's a tremendous job. And
It is.
Yes, and it's almost like we do it when one comes up that's causing a huge problem, then we try to take care of it. But we haven't really sat down and looked at the entire project.
Yes, it's mammoth.
It's unbelievable. And I didn't know a lot about zoning and planning when I first came on. And it's an unbelievable task to rewrite all these ordinances.
I mean, we have one ordinance that includes a standard that's been invalidated by the Supreme Court, but it's still on the books.
Yep.
Right. Yes, I know.
And I've stepped in that a few times myself.
I know exactly which one you're talking about.
Yeah.
We have tried to do this, but of course, it takes a budget, it takes money, and it also, it takes time. And like I said, we're inundated with so much stuff that we really never make it a top priority.
Right.
And I think we should at some point. I agree with you.
Well, and it shouldn't be, I can make the criticism of it, but I shouldn't be the one that's involved in drafting a policy, because that presents a conflict,
Right.
for me as an independent, finder of
Right.
fact.
Right.
Of course not. It's the town council. And whoever we hire or give that task to.
Yeah.
Chris, I don't know if you agree with what I've just said. I've spoken for you, I guess.
No, I totally agree. And I would suggest that to the extent that you find any other pitfalls that we're unaware of, that if you could just send them to me so that we can put them on a list of things to be corrected.
Of course.
Barbara, we had put you off for a while.
I just want to say for a minute, I have no problem reaching out to Chris. I mean, I sent him an email just the other day because we've had, I was approached by a gentleman who's the new EDC chairperson from Portsmouth. And one of the big things in the state right now is that has been supported by the Newport Chamber of Commerce, and they've been pushing it for a while, is that there's new legislation that was just passed in the House and has gone on to the Senate for to develop a commission to look at broadband services in the state, because that's really been a significant problem throughout the state, and it does impact on business. So that's why I was contacted. And he was asking me to sign a letter, and I said, before I can sign anything, meanwhile, he has changed the letter anyway, Chris. Before I could sign anything, I really felt like I needed, because we hadn't met with the group yet, and I hadn't spoken to the town council. I was like concerned that, well, should I be actually even signing this, even though it's just the legislation is just to form a commission. It's not anything, terrible. And so Chris was very helpful. I mean, I contacted him. He said, yeah, you should be fine with this. And when it comes up again, if it comes up again, I'll go ahead and do that, because I do think that this is a specific thing that is going to have an impact on businesses throughout the state, Tiverton, throughout the state. So I will follow up on that once the letters were written. But those are the kinds of things that come up. And, again, I mean, I reached out to Chris, and I will reach out to him and Jennifer as I need to. But it's important for me to sort of have a kind of operating sense of like where we're going, our general direction, so that I don't, I know that when I'm talking for 2 hours with somebody, I'm not, talking off the top of my head. I need to sort of know that I'm on firm ground. That's basically what it is for me.
Barbara.
Yes, I actually had questions about, I have a problem with the restraints of communications. And now, like when Renee meets with people, does she really need the input? We're a group of 5 people. There are 4 others. Should she be having the opinions of the others on the committee, but because of the postings and not being able to communicate with people, that's extremely difficult. And I understand why she's doing what she's doing and why she has to do what she's doing. But I just wonder if there's some way of communicating with members on any committee, legally, I guess, and facilitate it, make it quicker to come to decisions.
How often do you meet?
Pardon?
We meet on a monthly basis, and one of the
right. But like when you now talk to people wherever they may be, we don't really know what the discussions are going to be, and neither do you. But we might have an opinion about something that.
Well, she should bring it too.
And
Whatever
actually,
whatever.
If Barbara would give me a minute, the discussions that I have had this week are all on next week's agenda.
Right, that's what I was just gonna say.
So you always,
Right.
I never make a decision without some kind of input from somebody. And
I understand that you're very good about that. And I'm not criticizing you, but I'm just saying the communications cycle is quite cumbersome. And I wonder if there's ever been a thought of simplifying it.
Well, I guess I'm unclear on what is meant by simplifying, Barbara, because
Like if there's something
we do need, go
have
ahead.
an input about what happens, can we just quickly email to each other?
No.
Exactly.
Well, but that's state law. That's the Open Meetings Act. And there's good reason for that, because it's intended not to have small groups of appointed or elected officials make decisions outside of the public eye. That's the intent of it. The intent is to include the public to the greatest extent possible. Jay, you had something, I think.
Well, I'll just to comment on what the two of you are saying. Of course, the chairman of any board or committee can send information to all the members, not for discussion, just for information. So would that help you, Barbara, with what you're talking about, or do you want to have a discussion?
Well, even just knowing what's out there would be great.
Yeah, so she
And I
can
think,
do
for
that.
instance, Speaking
Well,
of
it has to be
information
done through
out
the
there,
town clerk. She'll have to
Yes,
send it to the town clerk, and Joan sends it out to all the.
exactly. But you can do that. But then the caveat is you can't talk to each other
That's-
outside of a meeting about what you received.
And that's part of the problem, because if I get a response, or
Yeah.
it becomes then a meeting, and that's part of the issue, I think.
Well, they can't respond to it, Renee. They can just read it and take it
Right.
in. as
That's part of
information.
the issue. That is
Yeah.
part of the issue.
Yeah.
Read only.
I think one of the best practices that I found when I've had to do that, even in other settings, is I either create a blind listserv that nobody else can see who they are, and it doesn't go back to them, or I just blind copy the committee members. So that way, when they can't respond to everybody,
Right.
because sometimes you forget about it, and oh, I'm going to say something back, and then once it's gone, it's gone. So doing that is a way of avoiding violating the OMA for that purpose.
and the other thing that I thought might be good is whenever there's a new business that's about to open up, I'm sure that there must be some sort of a permitting fee or something, occupancy permit that's issued by somebody at town hall. It would be good if they informed all of the members of the EDC that, so-and-so is going to be moving into like the new fish market up on Blissful Corners or things like that. Just so if we are economic development, we know what might be happening.
I think we've been in touch with the town clerks about this, the office on several occasions, and things have just gotten busy. So that's something that I have spoken about. We did it 3 years ago when we talked about when we had visitors come in for the lien process, that they went through the whole, they went through the town clerk office and worked on the steps that businesses needed to do. And that was something that was discussed, a good 2 years ago, and we've brought it up, but it's just people have other things and it sort of is not as pressing. So it kind of slips everybody's mind, but we have discussed that.
So what I understand is you want to be notified, which you should be, if there's a new business coming into town.
Yeah, and one of the things that we've also added to that, and this became very, became something that was really critical during this COVID year, was that as a town, we do not have a business list, an email business list. I have some, and I pulled together some as I work with, as I get a business here, there, and whatever. And just by having on the form a space that says business email, we might get more. And that could also be passed along, because literally this year during COVID, every time I got something from Rhode Island Commerce, or I got something from SBA, or I got something from who knows where, Dave Roberts has been a saint, God bless him, because I would text him and I'd say, look, this is the information that I just got, please put it on the website. But just about 2 months ago, there was but I had no way to send it out immediately. It was, if people found it, they found it, or if they heard about it in the newspaper, but I think it would have been a good step to be able to just literally do a mail that went out to all the businesses. This is coming up. This past 2 months ago, the Restaurant Revitalization Fund came up, and I found out about that through a meeting with Isabel Marsh. And because there are only about 35 business restaurants or food service businesses in the town, I was able to literally use the telephone book and either call and leave a message. If I found an email, I had it to get this word out, because this was something that had a fast turnaround time, and restaurants need that information, and the faster you get it, the faster you can apply. And so having something as simple as that would be really, really helpful in terms of disseminating information.
Well, we have Joan on, and I would imagine that we probably have most of these businesses' emails. It might be a,
I can check with Joan if you want me to just do it with her, that's fine.
well, I'm just thinking it might be quite the task, but I'm not,
I just had this
Yeah.
thought, when the tax bills go out after you decide what it is, could, for the business tax, the bill that goes out to the business, could we add a little thing, please include your email? Your business email?
I did talk to Dave about that. I don't know if we can get it into the tax bill, but I could ask him again. There was an issue about doing it on the tax bill or something. No, I don't remember exactly what it was.
well, I would imagine that the clerk's office must have these emails. What do you think, Joan?
I know we have some. I'm not sure that we have every business in town.
Mhm.
Well,
So we can certainly check into it.
Yeah, I just think it would be something if we could, even if we just start it now, it would be a big help. You know, next time somebody comes in for a permit or comes in for a new license or comes in for whatever they come, you know, some building permit that, you know, maybe that could be asked and then we could just gradually get it. It's not just a Tiverton issue. I will say that. Isabel Marsh and I were talking about that today, how it's really throughout the towns to be able to get it. And it's all because of COVID that it really became something that we all sort of zeroed in on.
So most all communities are not up to date, like in the 21st century of whether it be social media or electronic communications or
Right.
even internet protocols and things like that, just to start with. We have never put the infrastructure in place to manage anything like that. And it does become somewhat of a full-time job for somebody to actually maintain, keep it updated, and all those types of things. So I don't think I agree with you. It does need to be done, and it does need to be done in some sort of systematic format where it becomes almost automatic.
Right.
But it can become stale very quickly when it's not updated and monitored. So
Right.
it is somewhat of a problem, but it is something we should look forward to and addressing as a community to make ourselves in a better position to communicate with our constituents in the community.
Yeah, Dave has been really helpful. You know, he's done a lot for the EDC website. He actually even has like slides now so that people don't have to go through the sidebar. They can just click on one of the slides. It goes right to the EDC site. It's been great.
Good. He's pretty good about doing some of that stuff, but
He's
we
amazing.
do need somewhat of a complete redesign of our web pages.
Yeah.
Make ourselves a little bit more functional for the community to actually participate in what the things that we are doing.
Yeah, I agree.
It's one of those priorities that is a little bit further down the list than what I've been able to at least, you know, get a hold of. But it is on my list. IT infrastructure is a huge barrier for this community, for the operations of our government, and we do need to take a look at it.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you.
And I just want to make a comment, Renee, that I am aware of the lien project that occurred. Certainly is on my list of things to gather more research on. I started to, and then I got inundated with a lot of things.
Yeah.
So that it is on the list.
No, I understand all of this. It's just, I mean, I'm bringing it up. I understand that everybody has got way bigger priorities than some of these. But it's just something that if we sort of put it on the list, thank you, just putting it on the list so that I know we can move it up. That would be a big help.
Yeah, and there was a lot of effort put into it. So I want to be able to retrieve that and make sure that we make good use of that effort.
Yeah, thank you.
I was wondering if, Jennifer, you had anything you wanted to add to the discussion from your perspective?
Sure. I have to say that normally my first priority is handling a lot of the applications that come in for divisions or commercial properties because there's timelines involved, there's deadlines. So, you know, that becomes my first priority. So I don't have a lot of time to actually do planning in terms of economic development. I think one of the big questions I think that's no one is saying explicitly is the ideas behind what is envisioned for the Industrial Park or the Tiverton Business Park.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's two ways to go, and the way that you've been doing it is having businesses interested in parcels and coming in and then putting in the infrastructure. I think you do, if the town council wanted something where they put the infrastructure in first, that's a different way a whole different way of managing the park. I mean, there are state loans where you can put the infrastructure in, but then a lot of times that creates like then you could ask for more money for your parcels. But honestly, I feel like the way that things are going, even they're going slow, the way Chris is handling, that we're handling the businesses that come in and then we're putting the infrastructure in is a good way to, it is actually a good way to go. I feel like if you developed a whole plan for the park, you might stall things, and things have already been stalled in that industrial park, I think, for many years. But you know, so I'm like, whoever comes in is a good person. But as a planner, I do understand that maybe you want to be more thoughtful of who comes in.
Right.
I think that's a discussion to have at some point.
Yeah, well, I would just I mean, I've been on the council a while, and we have had discussions on whether or not to put the infrastructure in ourselves. And at one point we did look at grants, but it's very costly, and the grants will not cover the whole thing. And let's admit it, that industrial park has a lot of areas that are really not well suited for a lot of development. Is that a good way to put it, Jennifer?
Yes, I think that's excellent, because I think that you're trying to get tax money from the business park, and then you be putting in all this infrastructure, and it would kind of, you know, sabotage you're putting up money and then you're not getting money. So I feel like the way that you're doing it is well,
because some of these businesses don't need the infrastructure that others do. So when someone comes in and we talk about their infrastructure, most of these businesses are more than willing to contribute to that. And that has been helpful. And other businesses may be able to build on ledge because they don't need the property where they need to put a foundation in. So that's why it was decided a few years ago that we would see when these people come in what they need, and that would be the most cost-efficient way to do it. Of course, there's a new council now, and if they want to change that, but it's just that let's keep in mind this has been for sale for 20 years. And the first parcel was sold maybe 5 years ago.
I think the reason that it's coming up for me now is that there is this bond, and it's a $60 million bond. And when you look at, I will be talking to Rhode Island. I'm just on a fact-finding mission now because I need more information. I mean, it might answer some of the questions that Jennifer is raising in terms of what we can actually use the money for. But this bond is set for industry. So infrastructure is something that they are looking at and would consider. And Tiverton is one of the areas that is being looked at. So I just felt like at least it's worth to look into this, because we need to get a little, I just want to be a little bit ahead of the curve so that if
have you shared this information with Chris?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Yes. And I'm calling John Riondo tomorrow, and we'll get more information and see what in fact they can help us and just sort of refine my questions and then pass that along to both of you. Because if it in any way helps develop some of the areas, it might also help us attract some of the business, some businesses that we might want. Some things that are, I think it sort of goes hand in hand. If we want to kind of bring in businesses that maybe, look, Portsmouth right now has a huge development. It's millions, they got millions of dollars and they're doing a tech park. I see no reason why we can't be looking into something like that as well. And that's kind of what's in the back of my head. So there's no answer to this yet. I'm just going to go ahead and keep getting the information. And yeah, maybe it means that we just develop a few, infrastructure in one area, and then that becomes the tech area. Or maybe, there's a lot of variations here, but I think there's money coming down the pike. That's the idea. And I think we should look into it.
I had something for a minute, just to give people a little clearer picture of what's in the industrial park. I think sometimes the vision for that park has gone back and forth, so it depends on what month or year you're looking at it. So to date, there's the sports center facility. There's going to be a storage facility that they're doing some sewer. And then at the very end there's the power plant who they didn't do sewer. So they're, I assume, on septic. And then at the far end of the cul-de-sac, the new project that's going to be coming in is the wood drying.
Wood drying. Yeah.
And they're not doing sewer to that end. So that'll be septic. And then if the landfill transfer station goes into that park on the other side of the road, I assume that's going to be, I don't know what that's going to be. I assume it's going to be septic. I don't know if you're planning to do sewer there. So I just want to kind of make everybody aware that, looking at this over time, I don't see how this would ever be attractive as a business park, considering the type of businesses that are currently there and they're scattered throughout. One of them particularly is the landfill. I can't imagine people wanting to put businesses in on either side of the landfill transfer station, which is kind of just smack dab in the middle of the park. And it's like, if some people were requiring to do sewer, some people were allowing to do, it's not us. I mean, we're basically taking the direction from the council because you're selling the property. So you dictate the terms. So, for one, you required sewer, another one, you did the most recent one, you allowed them to do septic. So, that puts the planning board in the position of, we basically have to go, when we do our approvals, we have to take into consideration what the council has allowed them to do as part of their purchase and sale. So I just wanted to bring that out, that if you're looking at this being a tech center, I personally can't see where that would be. Would it be next to the power plant? Would it be next to the landfill station? Would it be next to the storage facility?
So you're kind of determining that it is really an industrial park instead of a business park.
Well,
Right.
that's the
That's what it is.
direction. That's the direction it's gone by the way that it's been, the properties that have been sold. That to me, that's the way I look at it and I see it. And I just wanted to bring that out to the council's attention so that when you navigate through these purchase and sale agreements, you're very aware of, are you going to ask them to do sewer, or are you going to allow them to keep doing septic tanks up there? So, because we can't, as a planning board, we can't countermand that if you're doing that part of their purchase and sale agreement. So I just want to bring that to your attention.
That's part of the industrial park.
Right. That's the industrial park. But I'm just saying and as you bring tenants in and also for the newest tenants, I would say, we always wanted to look at this as generating jobs, but the two most recent businesses, the newer businesses that haven't gone in there yet are very, I would say, not going to produce a lot of jobs. I don't know if they're going to produce local jobs. There's a storage facility. I don't know if they man it with one or two or three people a shift. That's not a job creator. I think the other one, the wood drying facility, he already has his workers, or that's not going to generate a lot of jobs. So that's the other thing you want to look at, is if you're trying to generate local jobs, you need to discriminate which businesses. But I know the philosophy has always been whatever you can sell, you kind of want to sell, because that's been sitting on the town's books for so long. I just wanted to bring this out so that Renee, so you're aware of kind of the direction that.
Oh, no, I know what businesses are going in. I have no,
Yeah.
I understand all that.
So I'm
But
just
I've-
saying, I don't know how realistic it is to look at it as an IT.
But I've also been to business parks that have a variety of businesses in them, and including an industrial kind of use next to a building that may have 3 stories, brick building, where they have offices. So it's what we make it is what it is, and what we decide to make it. And I think that's part of what we're talking about here in terms of, do we take just, where do we want to go with this? I mean,
Well, I think that's up to the council.
exactly.
Yeah, I think that's it.
I'm not saying no, I'm saying yes, but I think we need to ask those questions.
At the same time, I think we have an opportunity, again, with the chamber and with Connect Greater Newport to bring in some resources to really help us look at our economic development needs as a town, which would be inclusive of the industrial park as well as the other areas that I mentioned before, and then come up with a plan on how to best address it. That plan may end up saying, you know what, do what you're doing with the industrial park.
Right.
It may come up with other ideas. I don't think we have enough information or guidance, and that's really what the Economic Development Commission is asking for too, because part of their role in the charter and in the comprehensive plan is to help entice businesses. But without knowing what we want, that is an impossible task for them unless they just, say, oh, Renee runs into somebody at a restaurant who has a business they want to put somewhere, and she might think it's the best idea since sliced bread, so she brings it in, or she tries to, because there's no other direction. And that's really what my intent of asking us all to get together to the best that we could was to start that process. This is certainly not going to answer all those questions tonight. That wasn't the intent.
No.
But to really, have a systemic effort to look at that for us. And it includes branding, it includes, what types and where each type, and includes improving communication between and among committees and administrators in a systemic way. And certainly Renee, Susan, Lise can pick up the phone and talk to Rick, Chris, Jennifer, and that's great. But also I think we need a systemic solution too. Jay?
Well, to use a term, the elephant in the room is that the residents of Tiverton, regardless of what the comprehensive plan calls for, have pretty much religiously rejected any large business. Now, building mom and pop restaurants around town that employ 5 or 6 people isn't going to solve an employment problem. There was a move to put a mall in on Sousa Road. That got soundly defeated. That would have hired a lot of people. So part of our problem is we've got to find a way to get the residents of this town to accept the fact that if you want to improve your tax base, you're not going to do it with single family house developments. We need businesses. And unfortunately, some of them aren't going to be small, and they aren't all going to be in the industrial park, and they can't all be in North Tiverton. So part of our job, I think, all of us, is to try to educate everybody to what the realities are and what the solutions could be. And some of them are going to be unpleasant.
Jay, I think you do have a point, but I think past councils have paid attention to what people want, and we know, like we got a loud and clear message with you're calling it the mall, but with that development and the things that we're putting in the industrial park as of now, people are okay with.
Yeah, they are.
Not having a problem with. And I think not this council, but the council in the past who sold some of these lots have kept that in consideration on what we heard during those hearings and what we think would be what would be acceptable. And to this point, we have not heard a lot of disagreement with this.
Oh, I'm not saying that there won't be an issue with the industrial park, I'm sure.
No, not at this point.
But the industrial park by itself is not going to solve any of our tax-based dilemma, any of our employment problems. We're going to have, businesses are going to have to spread out throughout the entire town.
And as far as the industrial park goes, there's been a loud and clear message that that's been sitting there for so long, and taxpayers would like to get some benefit from there. And that's what the goal of the council has been up to this point, is to sell that property. And
I agree. It's been a white elephant for 20 years with 2 tenants.
longer. Which just got 2 tenants the last.
Well, now we got 2 more. But,
Yeah, yeah. And we're
the
getting
point I'm
off-
trying to make is, the EDC and the Newport Chamber and all that, they can identify the fact that we need businesses. They can identify businesses that could come here, but we have to get the residents of the town to accept them.
So that, Jay, is part of a good strategic planning process, is to involve the residents in it. And the so-called mall project, I think the other piece of that was folks felt it was done to them by a developer. It wasn't a proactive request by a council, maybe a couple council members at the time, I don't know. Nobody's on who's here now, I can tell you. But that's, and I won't name the name of the project, but there's another project that has certainly been on Facebook a lot lately. And again, it was something that the developer, the owner, decided, hey, I think it's a good spot to put this thing. And because we don't have a proactive way of saying, here's what we think should go in this section of town. Here's what we want to, and how are we going to entice that if we have any way to do some enticements? Over in this section, we think this should go. And, I understand the rationale behind how we're approaching the industrial park at this point in time. And maybe, again, that's the best way to do it. But again, a good strategic planning process will involve people in that discussion to the extent that people want to come and be involved. And it's done through public hearings, it's done through focus groups, it's done through surveys, all sorts of ways it's done.
I just, when you put this out for, what the people of Tiverton want, I always get the feeling that at these meetings, at the high school or whatever they end up to be, that it's not really a cross-section of the population of the town. It's people who have more time to spend, people who are more interested and engaged in the town, but it's not, I don't think it's a true representation of the population of the town that is either lobbying for or against whatever it might happen. I just feel that there's always a group that gets out a message, show up so we can defeat this or whatever, or the other way around too. But I don't ever think it's a fair turnout, but that is, you can't make people turn out. I realize that, and there's no way of making sure that you have a fair representation. But I still always think that it's not totally what the town thinks. There are some people who just work 3 jobs and are tired and take care of family and just don't have the time.
Martin, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I just maybe to put it where I viewed our get together might achieve. I think that the EDC is looking for direction, and I think that the efforts that Mike has made for gathering a group with help from outside to help us understand what we want to do with the industrial park and other parts of town, but industrial park came up. And that if we do reach a consensus about what kind of businesses we want in the industrial park, should be more actively marketing it. And then those groups can maybe help us in creating that plan that actually advertises in some way that the park is there and open for sale.
Susan, good.
Yeah, it just occurred to me, I mean, there is one route that Renee could go to work on this, to try and direct businesses in a certain direction. It's picking up what Lisi had talked about, is zoning. In Article 4, which are the uses, the use table, it tells you in all the zones what kinds of uses are permitted, what requires special use permit, which kind of uses are not permitted. And if Renee's even interested, with your committee, to start going through the use table and take a long, hard look at that, you could bring it to the planning board. We could work on it with you, or we would work on it, and then it would come to the council. But that's part of the zoning. But that's one way where you could possibly direct a certain type of businesses and where you wanted them to go, is through the use table and zoning. Yeah.
We can
Anybody?
That's certainly something that we could look into. It makes sense to sort of look at least what we have now, and see if as people are looking at zoning overall, if that still makes sense as well, because that's one of the issues that came up earlier. The zoning code is not as clear as it should be, and maybe that's one of the things we could look at, is where do we want what kind of business? I mean, I know, for example, if you go down to Four Corners, they're not going to want a large gas station down there. It doesn't fit the zoning because it's village commercial. It doesn't fit the historic district. So those are the kinds of things that can be looked at, yes, in terms of zoning. And that's a bigger zoning question. Absolutely.
I mean, and that goes in hand with when the council's been looking at the Airbnbs. That would be, that can fit into that table if you want to direct it.
Right.
How that would be. Another one is, I've heard conversations about breweries, people wanting to do breweries, to see if that's realistic expectations. I mean, you hear people talk about types of businesses that they want to do in town, and either the zoning code doesn't address it, or certain zones don't allow it. It's not a permitted use. So that's really something that could be looked at and kind of flushed out. That might help people in those kinds of towns.
Okay.
Anybody else? So I think this has been a helpful start myself. I think we still have some unanswered questions around, some of the questions about I appreciate what Susan just described, but some real good direction, both in that's inclusive of, do we want to engage more fully with Connect Greater Newport on, some type of strategic planning effort? And I think that's something the council will have to take up relatively soon. And that goes along with that branding. I think that's part of that discussion. How do we want to entice people as well as businesses to Newport? What's our message to them? And then that whole issue of developing a systemic infrastructure for cross collaboration to the extent that it can be done without overstepping roles or asking people to overstep their role within their respective committees and boards. I think that's an important piece to get off the table as quickly as possible too.
I do think that the chamber would be, Greater Newport would be very helpful to our ADC and helping to market many businesses here in town that are in existence. I do think that we're going to have an issue with as far as trying to create a strategic plan with the industrial park until we determine as a community what we're going to do with that. Are we going to invest in it by putting the infrastructure in that they can entice those kind of businesses to come? And without that kind of commitment, it's really hard to come up with, and I think they'll agree, to come up with a strategic plan on how to market it. We're not going to commit to putting in the things that are needed to meet that marketing scheme. So it's kind of a really tough, sticky wicket to work through. And it's kind of why we're where we're at today with the industrial park. But I do think there is a lot of services that they can help provide for many of the existing businesses that are here in town that could be marketed better by using the regional collaborative effort of the Newport Chamber and the Greater Newport entity. So, I do think it's a good idea to be totally involved with them to help market some of our businesses and to get better word out.
I just want to clarify, from both the commission's perspective, from my involvement with them, as well as what I've been looking at, is not a plan just for the industrial park. It's an economic development plan for the town.
Overall.
So I think those are two different things. And it may, initially, we may say, if we decide to engage in that process, we don't want to touch the industrial park right now. And if we decide that, we decide that. Or we want it to at least be in the discussion. That's up to us. But it was really about a holistic look, not just at the industrial park.
Yeah, because at this point, we are getting offers with the industrial park and don't want to delay selling those pieces because we're in a plan, because we may lose businesses because of that. So,
If you got offers, I think you have to address those and
Yeah,
Exactly.
make the decision for sure.
exactly,
absolutely.
Mont. And we are getting offers in lately.
I-
I think I can say that, right, Chris?
Yeah, and I have brought them, and I will continue to bring them to the council. And I will say that I know that there is one that I know Renee knows about that came about that really didn't pan out. That I also did bring to the council. And I don't think that we were at all enamored with looking at 6 to 12, 500-foot wind vanes sitting in Tiverton Industrial Park. Well, they were only going to give us $5 million over 25 years. I mean, it didn't make a whole lot of sense. So,
Right.
so I don't want to waste a bunch of people's time over something that may not ever come to fruition either. So I'm not trying to be secretive about some things, but when I can see it's a really bad deal, we're not even going to go down that road. And the council kind of agreed with it that we wouldn't be going down that road either. So
Yeah.
I don't want to waste your time. I know that you guys are doing very good work on behalf of a lot of businesses here in town, and and it's very much appreciated what you're doing. And it doesn't always get recognized. And it has been difficult to get everybody together to be on the same page, and we will try to do that more often.
No, thank you.
And developing a plan doesn't negate moving ahead with whatever is already in the works.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I have that's fine. It's just this, like I said, it's a number of things that came up at once. And if there's money there and it helps the town, then I'm going to keep looking for it.
No, I don't blame you, and I appreciate it. I think you're doing a great job. I don't know if at the end of the day, if it's a bond and we have to pay it back, and that creates a whole nother issue as to whether or not the taxpayers would approve us going forward down that road.
Yeah,
that's something that we would bring to the council and see where they want to land on it. But I believe in knocking on every door that we can to find out, if there's a way to do this cheaper than we're trying to do it today. So I appreciate your efforts.
Okay. I'll get back to you after I speak to John.
Okay.
All right. So, Mike, I think we've done a lot of B.
Yeah, I think we have. I think we just have to come to conclusion, maybe at one of our next meetings, not the next one, because the agenda is already set, about how do we set up those, and it may just be Chris saying what he's going to do about setting up those communication structures. And then we need to decide if we want to, and I hear what Chris is saying about existing businesses, but do we want to engage in an economic development planning process that's different than just working with our existing businesses? And I don't think we're going to answer that tonight.
No.
That wasn't the expectation.
All right, Mike, so what, are we done or what do you want to do?
Well, I think we need to put those on the agendas for the future,
Okay.
you know, in the near future. And the EDC has their meeting next week, and I think, Renee, much of this is already on your agenda for the commission to discuss further too,
Right,
right? Yeah.
Renee, has this been helpful?
absolutely. I mean, all of you are, I mean, it really has been very helpful. I just felt like we needed to sort of touch base, and I really appreciate you taking the time to do this.
Sure, and we can do this on a periodic, we'll put
Whatever.
stuff on the agenda, but we'll try to do this more often than we have.
No, thank you. I really appreciate it.
And Lisa, we'll let you come participate in the audience so you don't feel like you're violating anything, and you can
Right.
decide if you want to
I'll be
put
the
your
one with
hand
the
up.
gag on my mouth.
Well, Lisi, like I said, please reach out to Jennifer
I will. I absolutely will.
and the DPW director, and I know that Chris could help get
Sure.
some opinions for you also.
That would be great. Thank you very much.
And
Nice
I'm really
meeting
glad
everyone
you,
that I haven't met.
I'm really glad you did come, because we just did realize some of your difficulties also, and maybe we can
Right.
help you also.
Right.
Great.
Does the EDC need to adjourn first, or do we need to adjourn first?
EDC,
Okay,
Move to adjourn.
move to adjourn. Second,
Second,
all in favor?
aye.
Motion to adjourn the council.
do I have a second?
So move.
Those in favor, Counselor Edwards,
Yes.
Counselor Burke,
Yes.
Counselor Janik,
Yes.
Counselor Vieira,
Yes.
last but not least, Counselor Perry.
Yes.